Hello and welcome to today's episode, which is all about taking some basic ingredients and making something delicious. It's early January, and although it is unseasonably warm, it is still quite cool outside and in the house, and I'm in the mood for something comforting and warm. I had to do an emergency food shop from Amazon Fresh, and they've started doing their own range of food, and I bought these plant-based bacon rashers. You get 10 slices in the pack, and I had the first lot with some kind of scrambled vegan eggs in a sandwich. Fairly tasty. Last night I remembered I've got a pack of Leeks that I need to use and kind of thought, what can I make? And then thought, oh, maybe I could do a gratin and then show you how to make one. Gratin comes from the French word gratiner, which means to form a skin or a crust. I'm going to slice the leeks and bacon down with some new potatoes and then mix everything in a creamy sauce and then bang it into the oven for an hour. Got the oven preheating at 160°C. Mine's a fan oven, so if yours isn't fan, you want to go at 180, which is, I want to say 350 Fahrenheit. I'll get the sauce started and then the flavours can be infusing. In my pan here, I've got most of a can of coconut milk that I had in the freezer. And then I've got three, you can't now see them, 3 bay leaves in there. You can use any kind of herbs you like in here. The reason it looks kind of curdled is because it's been in the freezer, so the fat has split away from the water. But I think as it heats up, everything will melt together again. I'm going to add a little splash of whiskey into this. I'll do half a tablespoon. And then I'll add a teaspoon of wholegrain mustard, and then I might pop a bit more if it needs it. And about a tablespoon of Beef-Flavour Stock. Let's get everything whisked together. A little bit of black pepper, 1/4 teaspoon, something like that. And about 1/4 teaspoon of salt also. Initially I was going to make the sauce from oat milk thickened with some oat flour, but then was pulling a bag of starch out to make some parma ham after this one, and found the frozen coconut milk. I think it must be left over from the fudge that I did in the summer last year. So I thought, well, I'll use that instead. Just, you know, create a bit of space in the freezer. If you don't want to use the coconut milk, that's fine. Just use like 350 mils or, you know, 1.5 cups of oat milk. And then I'll show you how to thicken things with the oat flour in a second. Or you could use oat milk and cornstarch, or you could make a roux with some vegan butter and flour. You can thicken it that way. At some point I'll be doing a video on thickening, all the different things you can use to thicken sauces and setting agents, that kind of thing. So keep your eye out for that. If you hit subscribe and tap the notification bell, you'll be notified. I've got 750 grams of new potatoes, so it's your little baby ones. You can use any kind you like. I'm going to slice mine in the food processor just to save on my energy, but you can do it by hand as well, not a problem. So I'll just bang these through on the thickest blade. Potatoes are all in nice slices there. I'm going to build everything in a separate bowl and then put it into the cooking vessel. If the pot you're cooking in is big enough, you can mix everything in there. Have a quick check of the sauce while we're here. It does seem to be melting back together, so I'm just going to check that flavour. I'm going to do a touch more of everything, I think. So a little bit more salt. If I was doing it as just a sauce, I'd do it with just that amount of salt, but because it's going with potatoes, they're fairly bland. I just want a bit more saltiness there. A little bit more black pepper. 1/2 tablespoon of beef stock. 1/2 tablespoon of whiskey, another teaspoon of mustard. All of the ingredients that I've put in here are completely optional, so if you don't like cooking with alcohol, that's fine, just skip the whiskey altogether, not a problem. If you don't like mustard, again, leave that out. So I'll cover this and drop the temperature right down again, and I'll hold that at a low heat just while I do the leeks real quick. I'm just pulling off the outer leaves of the leeks, just because they're a bit tough and a bit kind of fibrous and not so nice to eat. I'm going to take the tops off about there. Again, just because that's very fibrous. And I think I'll do the pieces about that sort of size. So just these little rounds. I'm just going to separate the pieces down. So I'm just pushing them like that. And for anyone that hasn't had a leek before, onion sort of flavour, but much milder than an onion. A little bit earthy as well. Leek and potatoes are a classic combination for soups, and you might see them in pies, that kind of thing. But very kind of cheap ingredients, and it's easy to make them taste spectacular. Do the bacon in as well. And the only trouble with it is it does stick together and kind of break fairly easily. So I'm going to somewhat gently pull them apart. And I want to stretch the bacon out because I've only got 5 rashers, so I'm going to do them somewhat finely. You've got the 10, stick the full pack in. Doing that kind of size, but do it whatever you want. You can also get bacon lardons, which are like little cubes, so you can use those as well when you don't have any slicing to do. Give the leeks and potatoes a mix just to kind of spread things out evenly. So I just want to sort of distribute things together. So just slide the pieces of potatoes apart. Then I'm going to turn the heat up on the sauce, just because as I thicken it needs to be a bit hotter. Have a look at the sauce. I think I'm going to add some plain soy yoghurt into the sauce, just for a bit of kind of pan, 2 tablespoons to start. Again, this is totally optional, or you could use vegan cream cheese, that kind of thing. This is the oat flour that I'm going to use. It's just oats that I blitzed down in the coffee grinder. You can do it in the pestle and mortar as well. I'll add a spoonful at a time until it's kind of the thickness I want. So I'm going to take those bay leaves out. So I'll do, yeah, about a teaspoon or so. Give it a good whisk. And I'm opting for oats instead of cornstarch or anything, just because it's got some creaminess there. But like I say, you can use cornstarch or potato starch, tapioca, any of those kind of typical thickeners. It's about 3 teaspoons so far, but just use as much or as little as you need. Yeah, I think that's gonna be good to go. Pour the sauce over the leeks and potatoes. Mix it round. So I want everything kind of coated in the sauce. Because the leeks and potatoes are cold, the sauce has cooled down quickly enough that I can get my hands in here without burning. I've got an oven-proof dish. I'm going to pop it on top of an oven tray, just in case anything bubbles over. And I might do a bit at a time, and then I can get everything flat. So I'm just sort of flattening everything down, getting it even, just so there's not much gapping in there. I'm going to cover this with a piece of foil. The reason I'm covering it is if I don't, the top will burn before the potatoes kind of in the middle and at the bottom before they're cooked. So I'm going to slide this into the oven now. So I'll have that in for half an hour with the foil on. Then I'm going to take the foil off and give it another 25 minutes, half an hour. I'll then cover the top of it in grated cheese and put it back in the oven for sort of 5 minutes or so. In non-vegan gratin recipes that I've seen, some people put the cheese on at this stage, but because vegan cheese is made with starches, it goes crispy if it's cooked too long. So I think I'm just going to melt it quickly under the, in the hot oven and do it that way, rather than having a crust, like a, crunchy kind of crust. Yeah, so I'll see you back once everything's cooked. It's time for some potatoey, leaky, cheesy amazingness. I got the cooking time from a recipe that I found online, and it's well off. When I pulled it out after 30 minutes of being covered, the potatoes were still a bit raw, but because I'd not done it to that instruction before, I thought, well, maybe that's right. It wasn't. I'd advise going at 180 fan, maybe 200 non-fan, possibly even 190. Make sure your knife goes in fairly easily after taking the foil off, before you then start baking the top of it. This has probably been in the oven an hour and a half, maybe an hour 45. And I've kept having to pull it out and check it every kind of 15 minutes. I've stuck a knife in several times, and now it's going in nice and tender. And I've pulled a piece of potato out from the middle. That seems to be the slowest to cook. If you taste it as well, it still tastes a little bit uncooked when it's, before it's cooked, funnily enough. So then I pulled it out, sprinkled cheese all over the top, and then put it back under. I don't know if this brand of vegan cheese will brown, so I thought rather than it going crispy on the top, I just thought I'll pull it out after everything's melted. So yeah, let's scoop some out onto a plate. So this isn't going to be the neatest thing to portion out, but we'll get a good idea of what it's like in there. So yeah, everything looks lovely and nicely cooked inside there. That just looks like a cracking plate of food to me. Down the hatch. It's soft, creamy, comforting, everything I'd hoped for. Just not as quick as I'd hoped for. It would benefit from more bacon, just to get more flavour in there, but it tastes amazing. Leek and potato are a great flavour combination anyway. And then the addition of the bacon and the mustard and the whiskey, perfect together. Different potato varieties are going to give you slightly different finishes. Waxier potatoes will hold the shape longer, whereas your floury potatoes, they're going to sort of soften more and be a bit fluffier and a bit, they'll break down a bit more. I was in two minds of how to cook this. I was thinking it might be worth portioning it, in the little tins that I've got, like I did for the polenta top pie. But ultimately I thought I'll just do it in a big dish and then I can just scran on that for the rest of the week. But yeah, if you want to do individual portions, do them in the tin, and then you can either do that in the air fryer, cook it in the air fryer. I wouldn't freeze this dish. I personally don't like frozen potatoes. They lose the texture and they get very mealy and kind of grainy. I mean, if you've got some left over, by all means put it in the freezer, but I wouldn't necessarily batch cook it with the intent to freeze it. If it's mashed potato, you can kind of rescue it with butter and milk, but because the texture of it is kind of a key part of the dish, Yeah, I'd just avoid freezing it if you can. You could apply that technique to different root vegetables. So you could do like celeriac, parsnips, carrots, anything that's sturdy, you know, but stay away from any salad type veg, but anything that will tolerate being roasted. So you could do maybe carrot and red onion, or celeriac and parsnip, that kind of thing, or a mixture of lots of different veggies. Yeah, it would work really, really nicely. I think that might work if you could find like a vegan cream of mushroom soup. You could use that instead of making up the kind of coconut mixture that I made. That might work really nicely and give some nice flavour. Hit subscribe and tap the bell icon for more ideas on how to take a few simple ingredients and make something incredible. And then head over to this one.